Hey guys, Mr. Happy here and welcome to Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn 101. This episode going to be talking about tanking stats. Now, this has been a very controversial topic amongst a lot of people who do theory crafting in the Final Fantasy XIV community. And I myself am not a huge number cruncher, so I'm going to make my observations based on the testing that has been done, and I'm going to give you a general consensus of where points are more useful, what situations they're more useful, and just some general theory crafting of my own. Now, keep in mind a few things. One, these are based on Beta Phase 3 algorithms, so they are very much subject to change in Beta Phase 4 launch and future patch updates. Another thing to mention is that we have done no endgame testing whatsoever. So even though the numbers might be there, there might be some changes that people need to make on an on-fight basis. I don't see that being the case too much, but you never know. So keep in mind, don't take this as a definitive answer to where you should put your points. Take it more of an objective way of looking at how the stats operate and what the numbers look like behind them currently. So, with that out of the way, let's go into the 3 main tanking stats, at least out of the 6 main stats of the game, which are Strength, Dexterity, and Vitality. Now, the reason why we talk about these is because you can actually allocate your points towards them. So people have commonly asked, where should I put my 30 points as a tank? Which of these 3 stats is most effective? And there's been a lot of discussion about this. So I'm going to take my observations and take a shot as to what I think should be effectively the most effective way to use it, assuming algorithms don't change too much. So first, let's just look at Dex first, to be honest. I know it's not the order that's correct, but let's look at Dex first because I want to get Dex out of the way right away. Dex increases your parry and your block rate as a tank. It does also increase range damage, but that doesn't matter as a paladin or a warrior. Now, 30 Dex increases these rates by a couple of percentages. However, you don't really need Dexterity in terms of the 30 points. You have stats on your gear, both parry and block rate, that scale much more effectively and visually than Dexterity does. So it's effectively, it's considered, there's a consensus that Dexterity is the least useful of the 3 tanking stats. You may find some use in maybe socketing it in material-wise at a later point. However, I would not go out of your way to get a massive amount of Dexterity. It is not that effective of a tanking stat. With that out of the way, let's talk about the 2 powerhouses in the tanking stat allocation community, and that is Strength and Vitality. Now, first, I want to talk about Strength. Now, Strength has 2 effects when it comes to tanks, and I have done a video about this, but we'll reiterate. It increases the amount of damage you do, and it increases the percentage of damage that you actually block whenever you block or parry. For those of you who don't know, when you block a move, you don't block all of the damage. You block a percentage of the damage, and the more strength you have, the more damage you will effectively mitigate. Now, 30 strength at level 50 is approximately 5 or 6 extra damage onto your attacks and your skills. Now, keep in mind this also increases your enmity generation, though not by a lot. Most of your enmity generation will come from enmity generating abilities. Now, the interesting part is how much block and parry rate you get approximately, and, well, not rate, how much extra damage you block. So it's approximately 1% with 30 points. Now that's on block. On parry rate, it's anywhere between 1 or 2%. Now the reason why it blocks approximately this amount and not like a solid amount, why I can't give you a solid amount, is because of the way that strength works with block and parry mitigation. Basically, when you hit a certain number of strength, the amount of damage that you mitigate goes up by a solid 1%. So this means that you have to sort of get to a certain number in order to gain the full effect of the percentage. It won't factor off into decimal numbers. Now, this means that, for example, let's say you need 260 strength to block an extra 1% damage on your blocks and your parries. So you have 230 strength, you put all 30 points in, you get the 1%, and you can see its effectiveness. However, if you are at 229 points and you add 30 points into your stat allocations, you will only be at 259, and you will see no increase in damage mitigation, at least for one of the stats. Parry might see it, but block won't. But to effectively get them, you need to reach these parameters. Now, I don't have these parameters handy, but it's just to keep in mind that this is the average added mitigation. So on every block and every parry, you will mitigate an extra 1% damage. So let's end that right there, and let's move on to Vitality and discuss what Vitality does for you in terms of its utility and where it's useful. Now, Vitality very basically increases your maximum HP. Not too big of a deal. 30 points increases your maximum HP by 450 at level 50. Now, there's a few things that you can say about this. One, it's nice to have extra max HP. However, if you never fall below 450 HP, this HP is effectively unused. This means that essentially if you never hit the point where you were using the extra 450, it's not doing anything in terms of raw look at your HP numbers. Now, HP does things behind the scenes that don't always matter in terms of where your current HP sits versus your max HP. For example, everyone who's in combat generates 2% of their maximum health every 3 seconds. So when you add 450 HP onto the maximum, you effectively increase your in-combat regen by 9 HP every 3 seconds. Keep in mind that the tick can only happen every 3 seconds, so it's safer to say 9 HP every 3 seconds than it is to say 3 HP every 1 second, since you're not generating HP per second exactly. Now, it also increases the effectiveness of any percentage-based ability or heal. This includes most of the warrior abilities that self-heal themselves, Stone Skin applications, and Thrill of Battle. For example, a Stone Skin application will be increased by 81 damage if you have all 30 points of vitality, and Thrill of Battle will increase your HP by 90 once you hit the right level for it. So HP has a lot of effects on the side, and the 9 HP regen does really come into effect when you're trying to calculate which is better for which. Now, let's look at each individual tank now. Paladin is a primarily mitigation-based tank, meaning the more mitigation they have, the better. Since their HP pool isn't as high, they need more mitigation to reduce the damage they take. However, Warrior is not that high in terms of how much damage they mitigate. They're more about regenerating it back with the use of abilities and absorbing blows. Sure, they can parry, but parry doesn't block nearly as much damage as having both block and parry. Not to mention parry itself blocks less damage than an individual block would. This means two things. It means that Paladin scales with mitigation and that Warriors scale with HP. So essentially, it's very easy to look at strength and vitality and say, okay, strength is more effective on a Paladin and vitality is more effective on a Warrior. That should be a pretty easy call, right, based on what kind of tanks they are. But that's not exactly, because then you need to look at individual fights, which is something, as I said, we can't really do yet. It's just something to keep in mind when allocating your points and when you may need to respec points for certain fights. That means, keep in mind that the extra 1% of damage mitigated with your strength has no effect on abilities that you cannot mitigate, meaning magic attacks and special attacks that aren't physical damage, essentially. If you can't block the attack, the extra percentage of damage mitigated is effectively useless. So strength may be more effective on fights where you're constantly taking hits that can be blocked versus a fight where you are constantly taking hits that can't be blocked. So we can imagine there will be a decent mix of these in every fight, abilities you can block and abilities you can't block. But vitality is always there for you. You're always regenerating the 9 HP. Stone Skin's always available to give you the little boost of absorption. You're always generating more HP based on your percentage heals if you're a warrior. And Thrill of the Battle obviously always effectively gives you more HP back. Now, this still goes to say that it's still pretty close. You could still say put strength into Paladin and put vitality into warrior, but I say there is no solid answer yet, and I don't think that there will be. I think we'll be seeing a lot of respecking. However, your safest bet when leveling up is to put your points into strength as a Paladin. This is because it will help you reach those tiers of strength much quicker than adding the points of vitality were. And besides, 1 point of vitality leveling up doesn't really do much for you in the grand scheme of things. You won't see the extra percentages in healing, and you won't really see that much more HP. An extra, like, what is it? I don't even remember. It's 30 points, so it's however many. It changes per level, but the amount of HP you get per vitality at the lower levels it's negligible compared to the low mitigation increases that you can get from the strength increases. So leveling up, I think strength is definitely more effective than vitality, but at max level, which is what we're primarily focused on here, I feel like strength has a clear advantage in most fights over vitality. But we haven't seen the end game yet, so in reality, we can't say anything for sure. But I know some of you out there have some opinions of your own, so I really want to see what you have to say in the comments below. I want it to be constructive though, so let's try to avoid attacking players who may have opposing opinions about these. And it's still all up in the air. One day a calculation will come out that'll say, hey, do it this way, it's the best. And until that happens, well, we'll have to just wait and see. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy discussing this in the comments below. Now, please like, favorite, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this. Also, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Those are in the description below as well. Also, you can donate to my YouTube channel to make sure I can keep doing this for you guys. And also, you can donate to the Save the Children Foundation. If you need more information about any of that, send me a PM on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whichever one it is. Just send it to me and I'll be happy to answer you. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, take care.